Oi oi girls and boys and everything in between, it's Ace Trainer Liam, and once again today I want to talk about Pokémon on the Nintendo Switch. Last week I talked about 5 reasons why Pokémon on the Nintendo Switch might suck, and by the way, if you're interested in finding out what those reasons were, go back and watch that video. Thanks for the ad rev. But this week I want to talk about the positives. I much prefer being a positive person. I much prefer looking at the glass half full rather than half empty. So this is going to be a lot more comfortable for me. I think one of the criticisms I got in last week's video is it felt a little forced. It didn't feel as natural. It felt like I was clutching at straws. And to be fair, I was, because I was thinking, okay, I've got this great idea for a 2-part kind of series of 5 reasons the games would be amazing, because that's really easy to talk about, and 5 reasons the game would suck. So then I had to really sit down, knuckle down, and think of cogent, sensible reasons why the games might suck, even though I'm really looking forward to them. So it's quite difficult. Whereas this week's going to be a lot easier because I'm talking about how excited I am for these games and the reasons that these games could well be the best Pokemon games of all time. So follow along, sit and relax, enjoy yourselves, and let's go through 5 reasons why Pokemon on the Nintendo Switch might just be the best Pokemon games ever. Now, first up, I'm going to talk about the really super uber obvious, which is the power of the Nintendo Switch console. Pokemon traditionally has always been on handheld devices: Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, Nintendo 3DS, and whereas those consoles are great for when you're out and about and they're handy because you can take them anywhere, they're not known for being the most powerful consoles. Whereas now we have the Nintendo Switch, which is a handheld pretending it's a home console, or it's a home console pretending it's a handheld, whichever way you look at it. But basically it's a proven console that has shown the quality of games it can dish out. I mean, look no further than Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It literally is one of the most incredible games to come out in the past few years, and Pokemon is now jumping onto that platform. Imagine the depth, imagine the graphical quality of the next Pokemon games that are going to come out on the Nintendo Switch. Imagine how good they're going to look. We've even heard from Pokemon that Breath of the Wild definitely not influenced the games, but we've heard in interviews them say that they're certainly impressed with Breath of the Wild and that it's kind of on their radar, and that's important. Now, I'm not saying, oh, we're getting a big open sandbox game. That's not what this point is about, and don't worry, I'll get to those kind of things in a minute. But I'm talking about in terms of graphical quality, we are definitely looking at the sleekest, most beautiful Pokemon game I think we've ever seen. That's what we're going to be getting when Pokemon on the Switch finally drops. Obviously, we don't know when that is yet because it's this year or later, and this year is somewhat quickly disappearing before my very eyes. However, when they drop, we're going to see easily the best graphics in a Pokemon main series game I think we've ever seen. It's going to be incredible. The games are going to be the most beautiful things ever, and that's one of the reasons I know this game is going to hold a special place in so many people's hearts, because it's going to be like, whereas X and Y, when X and Y first came out, everyone was like, oh my god, the Pokemon are in 3D, this is incredible. This is going to be that turned up to 11. It's going to be like, the Pokemon look almost real. The Pokemon look like I could reach out and pick one up. You know, it's gonna be graphically the best Pokemon game we've ever seen. I have really zero doubt about that. Next up is actually a counterpoint to one of the points that I had last week, where I talked about maybe this could just be a lackluster generation. Well, contrary to that, this could be the best generation we've ever seen. Now, a lot of my points were maybe the story won't be that well-rounded, maybe they'll take it easy on the story and not really put too much effort into it, into making it unique and different to other Pokemon games. Maybe they'll go back to the traditional gym format with the HMs, maybe they won't introduce that many new Pokemon, but on the contrary, maybe they will. Maybe this story becomes the most complex and in-depth and just perfectly developed story that we've ever seen in a Pokemon game. Maybe the gyms don't come back, or maybe the gyms are back, but with a twist. Maybe there are more gyms. Maybe we'll get something like a Generation 2 game where we get one region with 8 gyms, we get another region with 8 gyms. Not necessarily, oh, we'll go back to the previous generation that had gyms, you know, the previous region, but more the game could take place in 2 separate brand new regions for all we know, which would be incredible because it's never been done in a Pokemon game. And all you people in the comments that are going, that's never been done in a Pokemon game, so they're probably not going to do that. Yeah, they never did trials before 2016. They only ever did gyms. So anything can happen in Pokemon nowadays. And that's one of the reasons that I'm so excited for new generations of Pokemon. Pokemon now. Gen 7, you have to realize, changed the game literally. like in an amazing way, because we had 6 generations of 8 gyms in a region. You fight, you win the Pokemon League. And then Generation 7 came along and went, no gyms, we're going to do these trials now. We're going to do island trials, and there's going to be kahunas and things like that. And who knows, maybe they could think up another different system that's even more in-depth and more unique to the new region that we get in Generation 8. This could be such a well-rounded generation of Pokemon with so much extra to do, so much more depth, that it just... I'm salivating at the thought of it. And not only that, much like I said before, where I was like, okay, maybe they'll only introduce a few new Pokemon, maybe 20, 30, 40, instead of, you know, the kind of 150 plus we've been used to in previous generations, or even 100 plus. Maybe this is the generation where they include over 200 new Pokemon. Who knows? It's really one of those things that I love speculating about, because it's like, wow, could you imagine if they just went, well, it's Generation 8, it's about time we got the number of Pokemon up to 1,000. Or maybe they'd then go, well, 1,000, you know, that's great to hit 1,000, but maybe we'll make a really special Pokemon, Pokemon 1000, and then we'll make 100 more beyond that. You know, include like 200 more Pokemon, or more than that. Just an incredible amount. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't like to see kind of a Pokemon Black and White thing where you only get to use the new Pokemon and don't see the familiar faces, but who knows, maybe 2018 or later is the year where that could work, and that could work really well. I'm just super excited for the idea of a brand new generation that could potentially be the best generation we've ever seen, because again, going back to the power of the Switch, there's so much more they could add to the games. Point number 3 is kind of a side point to point 2 that I just mentioned, which is really, if we look at Sun and Moon, okay, there was a big nostalgia trip with Sun and Moon, because obviously there was the battle tree, and there was, oh look, you can see Red and Blue, and you can see Cynthia, and oh, by the way, Cena and Dexio are in this game, do you remember them? And there were lots of hints and references to previous generations, and the whole point of Pokemon Sun and Moon, as we heard in the trailers for Sun and Moon when it was first announced in that February, or yeah, I think it was February it's first announced, Sun and Moon of 2016. They said this is where it all comes together, and it was very much it all comes together because there were so many references. I mean, even in Ultra Sun and Moon, the Rainbow Rocket episode with all the evil team leaders from previous generations being involved, it was very much look at all the nostalgia we can throw into this game, and it makes sense because Sun and Moon came out in 2016, which was the 20th anniversary of Pokemon. So for the 20th anniversary, of course, the game that comes out that year and the subsequent games that are enhanced versions of those games are going to be very nostalgia heavy. And that's great. I love nostalgia. Like, bearing in mind, you're talking to someone whose first Pokemon game was Pokemon Blue in the Christmas of 1999. Like, nostalgia, when it comes to Red and Blue, resonates a lot with me. I'm not necessarily a Gen 1er, because that's a garbage term that garbage people use to kind of poo-poo the fact that someone likes something that they don't like. And really, if someone likes something you don't like, just get on with your life. Stop worrying about what other people like and just enjoy what you do. Fucking loser. Anyway, tangent aside, I love certain things about Generation 1. I love certain things about Generation 4, because that's the generation that got me back into Pokemon while I was in the hospital back in 2013. And then I loved certain things about Pokemon X and Y, because they were the first Pokemon games released after I got back into Pokemon in 2013. So I've got loads of little bits of nostalgia from different games, and it's nice to see them appreciated in Pokemon Sun and Moon and in Ultra Sun and Moon. But the thing is, I very much believe, and it's one of the positive things about Pokemon on the Switch, I think they're going to take a very different path, and I don't think they're going to lean into nostalgia as much as they've done in that previous generation. I think Sun and Moon, with their nostalgia, was very much the fan service generation. It was like, look at this cool new generation that we've made with this cool new region, with cool new style, but look at all these nostalgic references we've thrown right in. Not even subtle ones where someone says, oh look, I can play the Jubilife City theme on my piano from Generation 6. Not that. Instead, it was very obvious in your face, like, hey, do you remember Red and Blue? Hey, do you remember Cena and Dexio? You know, we know about Zygarde. Do you remember Zygarde from Gen 6? Do you remember Lysander and Maxie and Archie? It was all very blatant nostalgia. Whereas I feel like in Generation 8, it's going to be no references to nostalgia. Like, there'll be the subtle ones, like the Jubilife girl that I mentioned. Other than that, it's going to be very much, Look at all the new stuff we've made. Look at the new story. Look how important the new characters are. Look at this game as a standalone game in the Pokemon, in the series of Pokemon, where we don't use nods to nostalgia all the time just to build a bit more buzz. I think that's really one of the ways they're going to go, and that makes me excited, because as much as I love nostalgia, things do get stale. Look at the reaction to Ultra Sun and Moon, where everyone was like, yeah, I love all this, and I love all these nostalgic references, but they're not enough to make me rate the game above a 7 or 8. And I feel like if they go in with a lot less emphasis on nostalgia and a lot more emphasis on the new and on the now and on the here, I definitely think we could see the best Pokemon games of all time. So I think nostalgic references definitely shouldn't be in it. Like, I keep saying shouldn't be in it, but it's like, references can be there, hints, Easter eggs, they're all great, but I mean blatant ones like Red and Blue appearing, or other former trainers being prominent characters in certain parts of the game. I think it should all be brand new, and I feel like that's the way they'll probably go because of Gen 7 being so nostalgia heavy. They won't then make a new generation on a new console that is massively nostalgia heavy, because it just wouldn't make sense. And I'm just really excited to get away from the old for a little bit and just focus on the present. My fourth point basically carries on from what I was mentioning before about Zelda Breath of the Wild maybe possibly being an influence in the way they're designing the new Pokemon games. I don't think, by any stretch of the imagination, so don't think I'm one of these people that thinks that we're gonna get a big open world Pokemon adventure. That's not how Pokemon works, and I don't see them changing to that kind of game. Such a drastic shift, I don't see it happening, especially not in Generation 8. Maybe Generation 11, maybe, but not anytime soon. I think they're very much going to stick to the more linear, you're in this town, these towns are blocked off for certain reasons, so you've got to work your way around and manage your way through the story. However, what I do think is we are going to get a much bigger adventure, and that's not just by the story being longer, it's not just by the number of gyms increasing or the number of regions within the game being increased, nothing like that. I think it's going to be a bigger adventure in that I think we're going to have a main quest, which is defeat the gyms, defeat the evil team, typical Pokemon quest, but I think there are going to be so many little side and sub quests along the way that you can do in any order, that you can do in any kind of, you can do at any point in the game, and maybe some early in the game are actually like rated like 3 or 4 stars, so they're actually too hard to do early in the game and you have to remember and come back to them later. I do think we're going to get more side quests and more missions, and that would be such a cool thing for them to implement, because one of the arguments with Pokemon is you get through the game too quickly because there's only kind of one thing to do in each town. It's kind of like, go to the gym. Oh, the gym leader's not here. Oh, where's the gym leader? The gym leader's in the cave nearby. Okay, I'll go to the cave, meet the gym leader, and then the gym leader will come back to the gym so I can beat the gym and proceed. And that's fine. However, wouldn't it be nice if you go into one of these houses where normally there's one of these nonsensical NPCs that just says, wow, I really like storing Pokemon in the PC. Did you know you can store up to 30 Pokemon in one PC box? How about if that NPC said, I don't know, my PC is broken, and unfortunately, one of the parts of it has been stolen by a group of wild Pokemon. Like, there's a group of wild Machoke that came in and stole a bunch of parts of my PC and smashed up my house. I think they're living in the woods off to the east. So you go off to the east to find this group of Machoke, and maybe you have to have a fight with multiple Machoke, either catch them or defeat them, and then there's a leader of that group that is a Machamp, so it's an opportunity for you to not have to trade for a Machamp, but you can actually catch one in the wild that is the leader of this group of Machoke, and maybe it's a shiny Machamp by default, I don't know, but just little side quests like that, just to add more depth to the story. So it's, like when you watch someone's playthrough of a Pokemon game, for example, you kind of know, if you've played the games recently, you know what the person's going to do next, because there's only really one set path, maybe 2. Whereas if someone's coming into a town and they're like, right, there's the thing with the Machoke, there's also a couple of like, not evil trainers, but a couple of like delinquent trainers that I need to go and teach a lesson to in the next town over. There's also like a mini game thing that I need to go and do. There's also a very rare Pokemon that's been sighted in a certain area of a mountain nearby, so I'm going to go up the mountain and look for that rare Pokemon. Things like that would be really cool, and because, again, going back to the original point, the power of the Switch, there's so much more room for these side quests to be added in. Like in terms of the previous Pokemon games, especially on the 3DS, like they were at the data capacity for a 3DS game, but especially by the time Ultra Sun and Moon were there. I think it was 3.2 gig for Ultra Sun and Moon, and that's a lot for a Nintendo 3DS game. So the power that's available in the Nintendo Switch will allow them to add more side quests, add more, or more just add more gameplay, add more playability to the games, add more different things. It will allow people's stories of going through Pokemon Switch, whatever it's going to be called, Pokemon On and Off. It's going to make everybody's playthrough that little bit different. You know, you would be talking to people and it'd be like, oh, did you talk to this person and get access to this side quest? Oh no, where was that person? Oh, well, once you catch the rare Pokemon on top of the mountain, if you go into this little cave here, there's a scientist who will like assess that Pokemon for you if you take it to him, and then we'll explain where to find another rare Pokemon. And oh no, I had no idea. I absolutely didn't have any idea that that was a thing. And I feel like that's the kind of thing that is going to keep Pokemon alive for the future, is adding more story elements, more side stories, more cool little extra missions and things, without taking Pokemon into the open world scene just yet. And that makes me excited at the prospect of them adding something like that in. And finally, this is probably a little bit shorter than the rambly video I made about the negatives, but that's because it's just coming more natural to me. It's just being positive is a lot more natural if you didn't realize. That's why I don't understand why people are bad people, because it's just really easy to be positive. It just falls out of me. The big positive, and this is going to be a bit contradictory to what I was saying last week about how the problem with Pokemon Switch and the reason that Pokemon Switch isn't gonna, might not live up to expectations is because of the hype. But the big thing that's gonna make the Pokemon Switch games, Pokemon On and Off as I'm calling them, awesome, is the Pokemon community. Now that sounds bizarre to some of you people, because some of you people are like, oh, the Pokemon community is so toxic and everybody hates each other. You're just in the wrong part of the community, mate. If you come into the right parts of the community, you'll find people who are loving and respectful and are like, oh, you like Pokemon? That's cool. I like Pokemon too. Oh, you like a Pokemon that I don't? That's cool. I respect your opinion because you respect mine. There are awesome parts of the community, hint, hint, that you can be a part of where we actually respect each other and we have a positive time and it's really, really fun. If you think the Pokemon community is toxic, you're just hanging out in the wrong part. You need to move to a different neighborhood within the community. But the reason the community is such an important thing in Pokemon on the Switch being such a great game is because we together can share the experience. We together will be sharing this game, we'll be talking about this game together, we'll be discussing it, getting excited about it, talking about our hopes, our dreams, our wishes, our wants for this game, all the way from the first announcement that we get that gives us some information, because we've not had a lot yet, all the way to the game's release, and then all the way beyond in things like TCG tournaments, because there'll be new decks and things, VGC tournaments, because there'll be new Pokemon and new movesets and new move tutors and things like that that will make that experience just even more incredible. There'll be more Pokemon meetups. The games, because they're now jumping onto the Nintendo Switch, might get a little bit more mainstream attention because not everybody has a 3DS. A lot of people prefer to just have a home console, and the fact that the Nintendo Switch can count as a home console nowadays is going to bring Pokemon into the eyes of more people. So we're going to get more people in the Pokemon community, we can welcome more people in, we can talk about new experiences and new things all together, and it's just going to be amazing. Like, I think back to when Sun and Moon were coming out and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were coming out, and we were seeing all the trailers and we were all watching the trailers together, and then as soon as a trailer dropped we'd all talk about it with each other, and just the sheer excitement just building and building and building. Like, as long as we don't get overhyped, then that stuff makes the game so much better, because we all learn about the game together, and then when we finally get the game, we're all experiencing the game in our own way, but then coming together to discuss our favorite parts of it. And sometimes, to me, that's more fun than the game itself. And that's not a knock on any video game ever, but one of my favorite things about video games is how it makes it so much easier to talk to people. It makes it so much easier to feel part of something, because you're all sharing this love for the same entity, for the same thing. Like, regardless of whether you're a fan of Alakazam or I don't know, Ordino, it doesn't matter, because you're all fans of Pokemon. And that's the cool thing. You can have discussions like, oh, why do you like Ordino so much? I like it because it looks like a weird, cute teddy bear thing with curly ears. Oh, why do you like Alakazam so much? I've never really been a fan of it. Oh, well, did you know that it's got great special attack and it's pretty fast and it's got a cool Mega Evolution? You know, stuff like that. I'm just really excited for the community aspect of this game. Obviously, trading and battling is going to be a thing as well, but who knows what else they could implement to make the community aspect of Pokemon, which has been such a core thing ever since day one with the link cable and trading between Game Boys. Like, I just feel like there's nothing that Pokemon can do in these games that will damage the community aspect of it. The community will always come together to share love for something, and they're organizing so much more events and Pokemon meetups and things, and even unofficial meetups where people are just gathering to talk about Pokemon. When the Switch games come out, that stuff is going to be on the rise once again, and I really can't wait for it. And I feel like that aspect and that bringing of everyone together is just going to help us all love these games so much more. Like, there are going to be people in the future who are like, oh, thank God Pokemon finally went on the Nintendo Switch, because I've just been exposed to this huge community of wonderful people, and I think it's going to be great. I'm going to love these games. I know I'm going to love these games. Might not be my favorite generation. Who knows? We don't know until we actually get the games, but I definitely know that from start to finish, I'm going to be excited about these games. I'm going to be excited to play through them. I'm going to be excited to learn every little detail about every new Pokemon and about every new character and every new little side quest or part of the story or whatnot. And I'm also going to love just coming together as a community, as always, to share in the love of these games, because Pokemon for 22 years has made everybody that has played it so happy, and I really just can't wait to see the future of Pokemon, and Pokemon on the Nintendo Switch is that future, and I really cannot wait. So those are my thoughts on Pokemon on the Nintendo Switch and why I think they're going to be the best Pokemon games of all time. Go and check out my other video where I talk about why they might suck in the description below if you really want to, if you feel like being a little bit negative. If you feel like being positive, hit like and, like the video, because it really, really helps me out. And if you are new here, subscribe. Welcome to our lovely, lovely community. Obviously, I'll be back very, very soon with a brand new video for you guys, but until then, I'm Ace Trainer Liam. Keep on training.